What's up guys, welcome back to the channel for what is a very overdue video. I caught Sinners in IMAX back on Thursday night. It's now Saturday. I watched it a second time because this movie is a lot and I wanted to process it fully before I recorded a video. Categorizing this one is difficult. It's directed by Ryan Coogler, definitely has some similarities to From Dusk Till Dawn among many other films. It's a vampire, horror, action, western epic, but also part musical. In Sinners, twin brothers Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, are World War I veterans turned gangsters who are returning to Mississippi after engaging in some criminal activities in Chicago that have made them quite wealthy. They plan to open a juke joint for the local black community, and the entire first hour or so of this movie is them recruiting a bunch of musicians, cooks, bouncers, and other people that they need to help with this grand opening. Among them is their young cousin Sammy, played by Miles Caton in his debut performance. Meanwhile, a group of vampires come across their establishment, because yeah, this is also a vampire movie. One thing that I really appreciate about something like Sinners is that it is at its core a B movie, a giant B movie on steroids, but it is made by an auteur filmmaker who knows how to do a lot of character work while also indulging in the carnage that a lot of people are going to come to this type of thing to see. It's a shame that studios aren't willing to make that gamble more often, because I just love when filmmakers take semi-original ideas and inject their own style into it. And that's exactly what this is. And I will say Sinners is a lot. It's very messy at times, and I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about certain elements because it's trying to tackle so much. I mean, the act of sinning, obviously, being used in the title. It's the temptation to make a deal with the devil, so to speak, in order to make your life change for the better. And what I found interesting is that the vampires, they are the antagonists in this movie, but they genuinely believe that they're the good guys in this story. Unlike the members of the KKK, which are showcased in the film, the vampires aren't prejudiced. The color of your skin doesn't matter to them. They want to turn you all the same. And they have a very specific reason for pulling up on this juke joint. And that reason, as well as being allegorical to cultural appropriation, is also deeply rooted in music. How music can bring a sense of community, because that's essentially what Smoke and Stack are trying to do. And this is by no means a dig at the rest of the movie, but easily the best thing about Sinners for me is the soundtrack by Ludwig Göransson, as well as some of the other actors who actually sing and play. Without spoiling what is being depicted specifically, there is one scene that heavily involves music, not just of one time period, but many others, was so unique that I almost didn't know what to make of it at first because it was so distinctly different from anything I'd ever seen before, but it was so well executed in terms of the cinematography, how it was shot, and the music itself is phenomenal. Another thing that I really appreciate about this movie is that it takes the time to develop the story, the world, and the characters. The entire first hour is mostly Smoke and Stack recruiting the other characters that are going to be involved, and even when the vampires do become centrally involved in the story, it takes its time to simmer in the suspense before it gets to that big chaos that we all expect after hearing that this is inspired by something along the lines of From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't think I've ever seen Michael B. Jordan give a bad performance, but I think it's worth noting that here he delivers two great performances, and I think Coogler does a good job of making the twins just different enough that you can tell them apart, although there were certain points where I had to remind myself, okay, wait, which one are we looking at right now? Watching it a second time, I could easily piece together the fact that there are some differences, especially in the moral code that each one has. At the end of the day, they are gangsters, so some of their actions could be interpreted as ruthless, but they're also very sympathetic. The supporting cast is absolutely stacked. We have Haley Steinfeld, Miles Caton, who I mentioned earlier, does an incredible job in his first performance ever in a feature film. There's lots of humor in the movie too. I like that it has some levity and that it has a pulpiness to it, especially when it comes to the character played by Delroy Lindo. Dude was hilarious. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Jack O'Connell plays an incredibly charismatic main antagonist vampire in the form of Remick.
Don't cry. It's all better now. Yes, I lied to you.
This movie understands what vampires have been in pop culture in the past. Sinners makes them sexy, but also enticing in another way, and that's through their immortality, which they use to try to tempt other characters into joining them. With all of that said, I can't not address the fact that there is an intense amount of hype surrounding this film. I mean, it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for a long time, and I don't think it's perfect. It does have some flaws. I did mention that it's trying to bite off so much that I think it occasionally takes off more than it can chew. There are 3 points where I think this movie could have ended, and I don't know if the last 2 were completely necessary, and if so, they could have been reworked a little bit to make things feel a bit more cohesive. Another thing, as someone who loves loves carnage and gory chaos in horror movies. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the first half, the buildup, to me was stronger than the actual payoff. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that things become so chaotic towards the end, and a lot of it was framed in a way that I didn't really allow me to see what was happening. There are so many quick cuts of people getting jumped, stabbed, bitten, and it's all shot in a very disorderly fashion, and that's something that I picked up on, especially when the rest of the movie is shot so well. Many of the character relationships are left undercooked, especially when certain people become vampires. I think Coogler does a lot of cool things with the vampire lore, but there is some serious ambiguity as far as how much of the original person is left once they are turned. Nonetheless, this is a great film, and I appreciate so much that it is the work, the vision of one singular filmmaker. Even though certain elements might feel a bit incohesive by the last frame, I think enough of them come full circle in a satisfying way that this is well worth a trip out to the cinema, especially in IMAX. If you're going to see this, I highly recommend trying to seek out an IMAX theater because that was a different experience of its own. I'm going to give Sinners a very strong 4 out of 5. Not that there has been much competition thus far, but this is easily the best film of the year so far, and I'm sure it'll squeeze its way into my top 10 list at the end. Flaws and all, I really hope people take the time to go out and support a film like this because we need to tell Hollywood that this is what we want more of. Original stories that feel less driven by studio greed and a committee of writers, and instead the vision of one singular person who had an idea, funded it, and wrote a story that is distinctly his. So those are my thoughts on Sinners. Be sure to let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Hit that like button as well as subscribe while you're at it. If you want to see more content like this, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.